to Rides and Drives Team Radio. I am Kaz. I am here with Harvey, and we got to thinking this week. We have a lot of friends who are fans of open wheel racing, mostly Formula One fans. A lot of them got there through Drive to Survive, who are staring at a full month, the whole month of April, with no open wheel racing. I've got to feel that IndyCar is a really attractive place for them to go. And Harvey and I just wanted to take a few minutes today to pitch that to you and give you the information you're going to need to get into IndyCar in the month of April and decide if it's something that you like.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's only one IndyCar race in the month of April, the Long Beach Grand Prix. But it's a great race, and it will give you some place to go on one of those weeks when F1 will be off due to the Iran war. So we'd love to have you come check out the race. Kaz, why should an F1 fan come to watch an IndyCar race?
Look, those of you watching the video, I know most people listen to their podcast. Those of you watching the video might notice I am wearing a big giant Max Verstappen shirt right now. I am a huge Formula One fan. I love those guys and love that racing. And I think both series have so many great benefits and so much to offer in the same way sometimes and in different ways others. If you are a fan of Formula One because you like the personalities, the IndyCar personas are less publicized because there's less money in the sport. So we see less of them. But when you do look and find them, we have 25 hilarious, dynamic, interesting guys on the track, all of whom have big personalities and are happy to share them with you. Also, if you do attend races, the drivers are much more accessible in IndyCar. So you can actually talk to them, which is really, really cool. If you are a fan of wheel-to-wheel action, and this is no shade on Formula One, the cars are designed in some places too big for the tracks. In IndyCar, you're going to get more wheel-to-wheel action because most tracks you can line 2, sometimes even 3 cars up side by side.
Right.
You get a lot more opportunities for passes. And you see, Harvey, I know that you had some fun on Formula One Twitter the other day talking about overtakes after Phoenix. We're not even just talking about ovals. Road races, street courses, you're going to see upwards of 100 passes for position. That's not including pit lane passes. Yeah. So if that's what you're looking for, IndyCar is a really great place for you, and I recommend it.
And part of that structural, I mean, just because IndyCar uses one car, one chassis, the Dallara chassis, and 2 engines, the Honda and the Chevy engine, built to essentially very similar specifications, you've got cars running very close together. You don't have a situation where you have a Mercedes with hundreds of millions of dollars poured into their car and,
a brand new Cadillac.
Yeah, brand new Cadillac
mirrors fall off of.
So yeah, exactly. Even a new team can come into IndyCar and be competitive right away, where in F1 that just can't happen.
Yeah, we saw a new team enter IndyCar last year, Prema. They're unfortunately not on the grid right now, but their freshman season as a team was incredibly impressive. We saw one of their drivers sit pole at the Indy 500, the biggest race of the IndyCar season. So a new team can come in and be wildly competitive. And the teams at the bottom of the table, the teams that aren't scoring as many points are still competitive and racy with the top teams when they get the chance to be.
Right. So great action on the track, really interesting personalities. I was, on the grid at St. Petersburg. I got to talk to Alex Blow. You can go look at some of the videos on our website. I got to talk to Stingray Robb. I got to talk to, Will Power, who is so funny because
he's so Australian.
Yeah. You think he is blowing you off, but that's just who he is.
It's just Australian. It's just Australian. I lived in Australia for 3 years. It did take Wisconsinite Kaz a few months to not feel like everybody hated me. But that's just, it's a more blunt and direct communication style. That's all that it is. And Will embodies that. And then I would say the last big, if you are a fan of Formula One because you like the travel, the glamour, and seeing all these different places, well, IndyCar is contained in the United States, at least this year. Not always, but currently.
U.S. and Canada.
States is, yeah, you're right. There is. Thank you. I'm sorry, Canada. I love you. Our brothers to the north. regardless, there are the United States, North America is a very big continent. So
Yeah.
you're still seeing a huge variance in landscape, terrain, and if different tracks are something that excites you, we don't just have road courses and street races. We have ovals, which you might be skeptical about,
Hmm.
but watch one. Go back and watch the Nashville race from last year and
Right.
tell me that oval racing is not so much fun.
Or
It's
watch Christian Rasmussen in the Phoenix
oh,
race this year.
this
I
year,
mean,
yeah,
yeah,
2 weeks
and you're
ago.
and that's the other thing about IndyCar is it's not just American drivers who came up through the American, you know, racing system. You've got a lot of F2 drivers, F1
Hmm.
drivers, people who've come from all over the world. I think more than half of the drivers in this series are international or close.
I don't have the number off the top of my head. I'd have to count, but I just based on
Yeah.
feeling, I think you're right. I think it is, if it's not half, it's very, very close. All right. So if we've convinced you and you're still with us, let's give you some information that you're going to need to know while you start watching these races. Harvey, why don't you talk us through some of the technical differences between the cars?
Well, I mean, big technical differences. First of all, as I mentioned, IndyCar uses just one chassis, and it is made by Dallara. And this was done to help control costs because here's the biggest difference between F1 and IndyCar. An
Mm,
F1
the
team
money.
an F1 team will spend between 140 and 350 million dollars a year.
Oof,
First of all, that's a lot of money. Second of
that's
all, that's a huge variance. So
that's a huge
Mercedes,
variance. That's what I was
Red
going to
Bull,
say.
McLaren spending 350 million dollars, and then you've got teams like Haas, and others who are on that lower end, and it makes that competition hard. Okay, so for an IndyCar team to run a full 17 race season with with three cars is anywhere between 15 and 50 million dollars. So
That's
we're talking
crazy.
about 7 times less at the top end. And so yes, you don't have all the technical things. You don't have active aero. Uh, IndyCar does have a hybrid powertrain system, and they do have the push to pass. In fact, or F1 kind of took that from IndyCar this year.
And
In
good job, it's
Yeah,
working.
yeah,
Push to pass is much better than DRS. And the fact that Formula One is moving toward it is great. If you are a Formula One fan who has enjoyed overtake mode, push to pass is going to be right up your alley.
yeah.
So exciting.
And with the IndyCar version of push to pass, you have only so many seconds of it per race. So you have to be very strategic in how you deploy it, which
Hmm.
is also a very interesting part of a difference between the way the cars operate. So the other thing is the engine. In the engines is horsepower. Okay. F1 cars make upwards of 1,000 horsepower now with their increased power of their electric motors. They went up to 350 kilowatts now, so they're very
Oof.
powerful electric motors. Indy cars make about 750 horsepower. The cars on the Indy side are a little lighter, and then when they're set up for big tracks like the Indianapolis 500, they're very fast. Top speed over 240 miles an hour, where an F1 car is set up for street and road circuits. So their top speeds are really in that 200, 210 mile an hour. So there's a top speed difference. Traditionally, F1 cars have cornered better because they had more downforce. They had the ground effects era, but that's gone now. So their cornering speeds are way down. So again, that's all part of trying to make a more competitive racing. But Indy cars always had that.
And I'm just going to say, if you have been frustrated by watching cars decelerate toward the end of a straight, that doesn't happen in IndyCar. So
No,
I'm not trying
they
to
might
ride
they
anybody
might
too
hit their
hard, but
limiter. They'll hit
Yeah.
their limiters sometimes, but they're not slowing down.
No
The
one's stepping on the brakes until they're actively there.
I think the other comparison, not just from a car standpoint, but when we look at tracks, and I
Mhm.
don't think we've talked about this, but when you think about the different circuits in F1 and the different circuits in IndyCar, there's some really interesting parallels. You've got Long Beach, which is very similar to Monaco. You've
Yeah.
got Road America, which is sort of our version of Spa.
I was going
Um,
to say Spa.
you
We
know,
just did a new race in Arlington that's very much Miami coded.
yeah.
It's a big event party situation. Um,
And they sold that venue out, and over a million, almost a million and a half people watched it on TV, which was a big audience for that race. So
that's a big number. Yeah,
yeah,
we're
yeah.
we're really excited about that growth, and yeah, I think you're right. If those locations are important to you, you're going to see so many cool, different, iconic locations in the
Well,
United
yeah.
States.
I mean, one of the season ends at one of the most iconic U.S. tracks, Laguna Seca, and the Monterey Peninsula. It's where you want to be in September. Book your ticket to that race. Get there because not only is the racing as good as it gets, but Monterey is one of my favorite places in the world. And if you can't go to Monterey and have a great time, spend all the money in the world on a luxurious accommodation, great meals, all that stuff. And if you want to on downtime, you can go kayaking in Monterey Bay, which is really cool. So,
Beautiful.
yeah, lots of fun.
All right. So if you're a fan in Formula One and you want to know who you're looking at in IndyCar, let's talk about teams to start.
Sure.
There are 10 IndyCar teams. There are a couple of differences in team structure. First of all, like Harvey said, it's a spec series. Each car is kind of a team unto itself. Unlike Formula One, where the McLaren team has one pit box that services both drivers, one pit crew that services both drivers, and largely one setup that both drivers have to manage, the IndyCar drivers each get their spec car and then have their own personal team, their own mechanics, their own race engineers, and their own pit box
Right.
on every race. So they really are kind of their own individual team within a team. There aren't team orders like there are in Formula
Yeah.
One. You won't ever see a race engineer telling their driver to swap positions with their teammate behind them. That doesn't
That
exist here.
that's illegal in
That's
IndyCar.
illegal here,
It,
actually.
it
Yeah,
it
you're
not
right.
only doesn't exist, it's against the rules to
So
run
it
team orders in IndyCar.
So, well, teams are important because you can still compare teammates to each other. You can still say, looking at Dale Coyne, for example, Dennis Hauger has 20 more points than his teammate, and we've only had 3 races. That's interesting to note. But it's not being a fan of an individual team isn't as
Yeah, it's not as big as it is in F1 where, you see people wearing Ferrari jackets and you see people
mhm.
wearing Mercedes jackets. Yeah, there's Penske fans and there are Andretti fans and there are Aero McLaren fans. And probably McLaren is the one where maybe you see the most team merch.
Yeah.
But IndyCar is really a driver's series when you think about that.
That's not to say, though, that the teams aren't important. Management at the top still works with all 3 drivers. The different drivers in each team share information with each other. For example, at Arlington, a track they had never driven before, all 3 Penske drivers drove a different setup for the first practice so that they could share that information with each other and determine which was the right setup for them to use for the race.
Right.
The interesting thing about teams, though, what does work is when Harvey and I were going through this, we found that it's pretty easy to draw one-to-one comparisons with Formula One teams in terms of the kind of like vibe and energy that they give you. So
Yeah.
we thought it would be fun to just scroll through all teams. If you are a fan of this Formula One team, this is the IndyCar team you might want to look at. And for our purposes, we have excluded Cadillac because, first of all, there are 11 Formula One teams and 10 IndyCar teams, so one-to-one doesn't work. But also, we're still getting to know Cadillac.
Right.
And we are talking about Audi as Sauber still for that same reason. We're still getting to know Audi, and they're still getting to know themselves as well, quite
Clearly,
clearly.
since with personnel changes that happened this week. But yeah,
So,
so
yeah,
yeah, so let's start at the top. I mean, if you're a fan of Mercedes, which team should you be looking at?
this is to me the clearest one-to-one comparison. It's Chip Ganassi, a long history of success and a long history of professionalism. I look at Mercedes as a team that is kind of, for lack of a, they're classy,
Hmm.
and Chip Ganassi gives that vibe. These are pros doing their best racing and doing it very well. Pit lane mistakes are super rare for Chip Ganassi, super rare for Mercedes as well. All of those little details are always going to be ironed out, and the way they conduct themselves in interviews on and off the grid is nothing. The best word you can use to describe them is professional. I see a clear comparison there.
Yeah,
So if you're a Mercedes fan, Chip Ganassi is your team.
I think that makes sense. And again, one of the other differences between F1 and IndyCar is Mercedes has two cars.
Mhm.
Chip Ganassi has three cars. So you've got, Alex Palou, you've got Scott Dixon, and you've got Kiffin Simpson in the third car. So, there are differences that way. But, go ahead, take a look at those guys. If you're a Mercedes fan, I think you will find very similar things there.
And hey, if you're jumping into IndyCar as a Chip Ganassi fan, you have four-time IndyCar champion Alex Palou on
Yeah.
your team. Congratulations to you. You're about to have a great season. Have fun.
Yeah. The next team on the grid, I think a lot of F1 fans talk about is Red Bull, of course. And if you're looking at, you think about Red Bull over the last few years, it's been that sort of quasi villain,
Yeah.
team, especially with Christian Horner at the head and all the controversy around
The
that and the
way
fact
Max was
the
portrayed in the first season of Drive to Survive, which doesn't seem like that's the way he is as a person,
yeah.
but still that kind of villain
And the fact
bully
that they can never
persona.
seem to keep a second driver in the seat. So,
Mhm.
and there's always speculation about it. We're going to compare them to Penske.
Yeah.
Penske has been this long time dominant figure in IndyCar. Roger Penske is iconic. He's won, his teams have won more Indy 500s than anyone else. He and Ganassi share, I think, the number of championships overall. It's a really great organization, but they've gone through some issues in the last couple of years. They had their cheating scandal last year,
Yeah,
similar to, you know,
that's my big when I'm making this comparison. I'm thinking of first of all, the attitude's a little cocky. I love that. I don't
mhm.
say that in a bad way, but the attitude's a little cocky. Beyond that, though, Penske has a reputation and it's earned for finding ways to manipulate the rules so that they are in their favor. And sometimes it steps over the line to the point where they are penalized.
Right.
They were penalized for using push to pass on restarts, which is not allowed in IndyCar. That was at the start of the 2024 season. Two
Right.
drivers who scored very well in two races had those points taken away from them. Um, and then at the Indy 500 just last year, two Penske cars were disqualified in qualifying. Well, not disqualified, but they were disqualified from continuing in qualifying
Yeah,
because
they
there
had
was
to
an
start
illegal
from the
piece on the
back.
car. They had to
Right.
start from the back of the grid. This isn't recent. Penske was caught dipping their chassis in acid at one point to
Well, that was
lighten
back
them.
in the
Not
Trans
in,
Am
yeah,
days.
not
Yeah.
in IndyCar, but
But
still,
Roger has always believed in pushing the boundaries and trying to find the unfair advantage, as he liked to call it. So,
and I'm all for it. Racing is
mhm.
a sport where I think that it's really only cheating if you got caught.
Right. So, who's McLaren?
Right. This should be so easy, right?
Right.
If you're a McLaren fan, look for the papaya. I don't think it matches vibe wise, though. I
No.
would say if you are a McLaren Formula One fan, I would say you get to spare yourself the pain, but Andretti has a very similar energy to
Hmm.
McLaren. Andretti is a team with all the legacy and history, and they should be great. And yet somehow they struggle to put it together. Now, in recent years in Formula One, McLaren's been looking really great.
Yep.
Obviously, McLaren won both the drivers and constructors championship last year. Andretti now is, I would say, where McLaren was 2 years ago. They're
I
starting to clean up those little mistakes. They
Yep.
clearly had the fastest car on the grid last weekend and looked so strong. I think McLaren is entering their 2025 Formula One McLaren era, and they're
Andretti,
looking
yeah.
great.
Yeah, and Andretti is ready to challenge for the championship. Bringing Will Power in, a driver with all that experience to help this team. And I think, yeah, they feel like McLaren. They're ready to go dominate now in a way that they couldn't 2 years ago.
So if McLaren's not McLaren,
Mhm.
then who is Arrow McLaren?
This is People will laugh at this, I hope. Arrow McLaren is Ferrari. This
Yes,
is a team that should be winning championships, right?
at the
It's,
very least, races.
they've got all the money, they've got all the heritage, they've got great drivers, and they find ways not to compete, right? Um, and it's so funny because you'd think that you do McLaren comparison, but I think Arrow McLaren is Ferrari for F1 fans.
It's a bit of a sad existence, guys, but Ferrari fans are used to it at this point.
So move down the grid now. Those are sort of the big teams, right? The other three-car team on the grid for IndyCar is RLL, Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan, right? And
Yep.
again, a team with a really rich history, but right now they feel like they're lost in the woods.
Yeah. Can't
So,
seem to put it together. And
yeah,
that is very clearly Aston Martin.
yeah.
All the money, all the legacy, where are they?
Where's the results? And we had hoped to see some turnaround for RLL this year with some of the off-season changes they made. Haven't seen it on the track yet, but
I'm getting less and less hopeful every week, guys.
all right. And then we've got some up and comers. And this is where it really kind of compares to the midfield, right?
Hmm.
Of F1. So if you said, okay, Haas F1 this year, they feels like they're coming up. They've got some energy and juice. What IndyCar team would a Haas fan want to look at?
If I'm looking at upward motivation at a team that's growing and making a splash, that is Ed Carpenter Racing. Ed Carpenter is a two-car team. You've got Christian Rasmussen and Alexander Rossi. These drivers make great decisions, and we'll talk about Christian Rasmussen later, but he
Mhm.
is so much fun to watch. Ed Carpenter has been making really big moves and growing in a way that feels really similar to Haas's growth. So if that's a story you enjoy, go check out some Ed Carpenter racing. It's really great.
Yep. Then you've got Williams, which again is a legacy team that feels like they're ready to start moving up.
Yeah.
Um, and
Love what
so,
James Vowles has been doing. It's looking
yeah.
great.
And the IndyCar team that I would compare them to is Meyer Shank Racing. Meyer Shank is, a great racing name in the United States. They've won, all kinds of sports car races, IMSA, all that stuff. And their IndyCar programs have been solid. But right now they feel like they're really have a lot of positive momentum.
Meyershank is still back from being what I would call a top team, similar to
Hmm.
Williams, but the growth that they've shown over the last several years and the growth potential that they continue to show me every race weekend feels really similar to what Williams is doing right
Yeah.
now.
And then you've got Racing Bulls, right? Which
Hmm.
is sort of the Red Bull junior team, even though they don't like to be called that. And frankly, their results right now,
Are
are
strong.
pretty strong. But their
Yeah.
relationship with Red Bull reminds me of AJ Foyt and their relationship with Penske, right?
Now, we do want to say that almost every IndyCar team has technical partnerships in this way. But I would say that AJ Foyt and Team Penske talk about their technical partnership more than most teams. I
And
don't know that that means they use it more, but
yeah,
certainly Team Penske uses AJ Foyt as a driver school and farm. And we were
yep,
seeing that this year with David Malukas, who's just moved from the AJ Foyt to the Penske. He's doing great, by the way.
yeah,
I'm becoming a huge fan of David Malukas, so
yeah.
really happy about that. But yeah, if Penske is Red Bull, AJ Foyt's certainly Racing Bulls.
One of the F1 teams that can't seem to get out of its own way this year is Alpine. They're really struggling with the new regulations. I kind of liken them to Juncos Hollinger Racing in
Sure.
IndyCar. They've struggled. They always feel like they're going to be at the back of the pack, even though Renus VK is looking fairly strong. But, Stingray Robb just seems to bring nothing to the table,
Yeah,
unfortunately, as nice
I
a guy as he is.
I struggle to I struggle to
Yeah,
yeah, we'll get there. Stingray needs to step it up big time, and that team does as well. And that's something that I see from Alpine is this they
yeah,
just can't seem to put it together in any kind of meaningful way, and they're kind of always stuck at the back there. And that's JHR. And then our final team, and I'm so sorry, Dale Coyne, but Dale Coyne is the kick Sauber. Again, we're doing Sauber, not Audi, sorry. Dale Coyne is just a team that consistently I expect to be running in the back. Again, Dale Coyne is doing some cool stuff. Dennis Hauger, their rookie, is looking really impressive, and for that reason, I don't expect him to be in the Dale Coyne next year,
right. I mean, he'll move to one of their technical partnership team, or if he
or
continues
even a
to do that
different
well.
midfield team. I can absolutely see somebody like ECR, like Meyer Shank, being interested. I think that Hauger could
Well,
be an excellent replacement for Stingray if JHR decides to make that move.
or
Um,
the third McLaren seat. If Nolan
oh
Siegel
gosh,
doesn't
yeah,
step it up, you'd certainly look at him there. So,
yeah, absolutely. And that would be a really great move for McLaren. That would give them three very solid drivers. So those are our team comparisons. And again, they're going to be, a little messy, but I honestly feel that this is a fairly solid one-to-one comparison. If you're an F1 fan, go check out the team that aligns with your team. I really do think you're going to like them. But there are also the humans involved because like I said at the top of the podcast, IndyCar is filled with incredible personalities. And unfortunately, I don't want to do one-to-one comparisons here because people are different people. And
I
it
agree.
really just doesn't line up. The only even close one I can kind of think of is Lewis Hamilton and Scott Dixon, both legacy drivers who have accomplished so much over the course of their career, both knights.
Hmm.
Sir Lewis Hamilton, Sir Scott Dixon. But the rock star thing that Lewis Hamilton has, Scott
Yeah.
Dixon doesn't. He's a guy who loves his family and loves racing and really doesn't want to attend fashion events. So it's not perfect. You could say Alex Palou and Max Verstappen on track,
Right. But
but
off
it
track, they
doesn't even
couldn't be
always
more
work
different.
on track because who was it last week? Kyle Kirkwood said he was confident putting in a crazy overtake on Alex because he knows Alex is not going to do anything nuts. Max Verstappen rammed George Russell because he was throwing a tantrum.
Yeah.
That's something Alex Palou would never, ever, ever, ever do. But he has achieved incredible results. So let's just run through some people you need to know and give you a good idea of who they are, a little bit of a starter.
Yep.
So I think it's fair to start with the championship contenders. IndyCar is quite competitive. We're three races into the season. We're not looking at one or two guys. We actually had to narrow this list down so that we weren't going to massively overextend our time talking about why 12 guys could theoretically win the championship. Let's start with Alex Palou.
Yeah.
Reigning
For,
champion. He's won the last 3 years, um, and then one prior. Alex has won on every type of race. He's won the Indy 500. He has won on streets. He has won on road courses.
Short
Alex is
ovals. Yep.
short ovals, long oval, whatever you want. Alex can do it. He is, outside of being an incredible driver, probably the most humble man in the world.
Yeah, and it's so funny because you think and expect this sort of veneer of humility, but it's genuine. You
Yeah,
know, when he
I
talks
hate false
about,
humility, and I
yeah,
can detect it. He does not have it.
no,
It's
he's,
real.
yeah. So Alex is, if you want to be a front runner, you know, and look at Alex, and if you want to see someone who can drive just, I mean, really take his car to the limit consistently, lap after lap, and make great passes and defend, you know, he defended hard. And, you know, Kirkwood just made a great move at an unexpected place. And he said, in fact, if I hadn't taken him then, Alex would have found a way to stop me on the next lap because he would have been expecting it.
Because he was ready for me. Yeah, Alex says that if I'm putting money on a guy to win any given race, it's usually going to be Alex.
Yeah.
If you want to root for the guy who is very likely to win, again, it's
Finish
not
on the
Formula
podium.
One. We're not looking at definitely going to win, but it's Alex Palou.
Alex
Um,
Alex is always a good bet to be on the podium.
yeah, yeah. Put if you're a betting human being, if you're listening to this trying to get ideas of who to put money on, that's a good pick. It won't pay out that well though.
Right. All
um,
right.
we've mentioned Kyle Kirkwood a couple of times, so let's talk about him.
Yeah, Kyle is you know, great driver for Andretti, American. You know, he
Floridian.
Floridian, yep. He has flirted with championship contention over the past couple of years, and this year it really feels like they've put it together as a team. He is you know, he's just a kind of a regular guy, but funny, you know, in
The
post-race
way he
press conferences.
drives is ballsy.
Yeah.
Also, he's not this. We've mentioned this overtake at Arlington multiple times. I really recommend you guys all go watch it. The sheer gumption it took for him to stick his car there was absolutely wild. None of us expected the overtake to come where it did, and that's why it worked, and that's why he chose to do it.
Yep.
Kyle is a super nice guy. And very forthcoming with the press, I would say. He's
Yeah.
always really happy to answer questions and chat. I like Kyle a lot, and I think he's also a solid bet for the championship this year.
Yeah, I think if you were gonna, and I'm sure there are odds out there, you can go look at them. It's probably still Pillow and him second right now.
Yeah, I would say that that's for sure. Kyle currently leads the championship. We're gonna have a really competitive season though, so I
Yeah,
expect the championship lead to. We've already had three different championship leaders, three races, three different championship
yep.
leaders. And I think we're going to see that lead change multiple times throughout the season.
Well, let's talk about a fan favorite now, and that's Pato Award. You
Oh,
know,
everybody loves Pato. He's the
yeah,
rock star.
you go to the track and he gets definitely the most attention. You know, fans ooh and ah when they see him. Kids love him.
He's
Uh,
great with kids. It's
yeah,
really sweet watching videos of him with kids.
I see when he's autographing for kids, he takes all the time in the world with them. He's a Mexican driver. You know, he was really bummed out when IndyCar didn't have the Mexican race this year. He wants to go there and do that. But he's also raised in Texas, so Arlington was kind of a home race for him.
He'll
Um,
keep pushing for that Mexico race as well.
right.
That's not something Pato's given up on because it can't happen this year. That is something that he will work hard to make happen. And because of what a superstar he is, and I think the best way to describe what a superstar he is, there are merch shops that like little tents that pop up all throughout any given race. Teams will have their own shop quite frequently. And then there's, of course, the big IndyCar shop. There is a Pato shop. He is the
Mhm.
only driver who has his own merch shop,
Yeah.
all Pato stuff. Everybody loves Pato Award. And you know what? Like, let's not dance around it. Man's handsome. If that's something that matters to you, handsome young man.
Well, speaking of handsome, then we have to talk about Joseph Newgarden, the All-American boy, right? The face of IndyCar for Fox. It feels like they want to make him the face of the sport.
They want to
Um,
make him the guy, and I am a huge fan of Joseph Newgarden. I love that guy, but I don't love him because he's the all-American boy. I love him when he is a villain,
oh yeah,
which he kind of is. I in the best in a WWE heel kind of way, Joseph Newgarden is the villain, and I really think he embraces that role so well. If you haven't seen the preseason ads, I think his was my very favorite.
yep.
He allowed himself to be portrayed as a pure psychopath, and it was excellent every step of the way. He'll say things in press conferences like, "The evil empire is back, and we're coming for you." Um,
Hmm.
and and outside of him as a persona, Joseph Newgarden is a two-time IndyCar champion. He has won the Indy 500 2 years in a row, which is a very rare thing to be able to pull off. Um, you got to look out for Joseph Newgarden, particularly on ovals, but every kind of, I mean, he's won everywhere. Just because
Right.
he specializes in ovals doesn't mean he can't do anything else. So, as a
Yeah.
personal note, check out Joseph Newgarden. He's great.
And then the other driver, his former teammate, we could talk about Will Power.
Sure.
I think Will is one of those guys who can do it all as well, and
Yeah.
has,
Yeah.
multiple IndyCar champion, Indy 500 winner, you name it, he's done it in the sport. I think he has the record for most poles of any driver.
By far.
Right.
Guys, Willpower has been racing in IndyCar for a long time. I think he's got something he's if it's not 20, it's close, but I think it's 21 years in
Yeah.
the series. Scott Dixon has 23 for reference. Willpower, again, these are all off the top of my head, so give me a plus or minus 3. I believe he has 71 career poles, and I
Yeah.
believe Scott Dixon has 46. Scott Dixon is also a multiple time IndyCar champion. So the way Will can pull together a single lap in qualifying is, I mean, nobody has ever matched it, and I don't know that anybody ever will.
Right. That's just, I mean, between the longevity, the performance, and let's face it, the fact that he was the lead Penske driver when Penske was at its best, I think, at the top of its game. But he's moved on to Andretti now, and that may be a great move for him.
The other
Yeah,
the other great thing about Will is his personality is so strong. This is a man who is not afraid to tell you how he feels. As a young driver, after a race was restarted under what he felt were safe conditions and there wound up being a crash, he gets out of his car and double birds the race director.
yeah.
This guy's going to tell you how he feels. He's a really, really straightforward, passionate guy. He loves racing, and that's very, very clear. And he leaves everything out there. Everything he's feeling, you will know. He's so much fun to watch.
And
Will's a
we have a
great guy.
nice interview with him on our website on Rides and Drives, a driver interview with him. So take a look at that. We got one of our writers was able to corner him before the Portland race last year, so
That's
which
right.
he ended up winning. So
Yes, he did, and
yeah,
and he made a brilliant set of decisions to get himself there. It was really excellent, and Penske needed it at that
yeah,
point. He was still driving for Penske, and then the last driver I would say as a championship contender is going to be Scott McLaughlin, who is another Penske driver with Joseph Newgarden. Scott McLaughlin is younger. Um, Kyle Kirkwood is also younger. There are a lot of parallels in their careers. They're
right.
both drivers who I have thought of as guys who will be championship contenders in the future, who are now entering that point where they are. These
Yeah.
are real threats now. Scott is maybe the funniest driver on the grid. I recommend listening to every single interview. They've been doing for IndyCar's been doing a lot of the same like goofy YouTube driver get to know your driver videos that Formula
Hmm.
One has done in the past. They've started that this year. They did a video where they gave drivers, I think it was 26 seconds to talk about whatever they wanted. Every other driver in the video just kind of introduced themselves, talked about things they like, whatever. Scott McLaughlin did a 26-second rant about why there are too many Toy Story movies and we should stop making more Toy Story movies. He's just a fun guy. I
Yeah.
really love listening to him talk.
And he came up from Australian sports car racing. And
Scott McLaughlin is from New Zealand.
yes, he's a New Zealander, but he
Oh,
raced
but yes, he raced in. Yeah, you're right. Thank
he
you.
raced in the Australian sports car, supercar series, and you can tell with the way he drives.
He's an
He's
aggressive
yeah,
driver.
he's
As
a lot
laid
of
back
fun.
as he is in interviews, he is an aggressive driver on the track. So,
Yeah,
and
well, and
we're gonna move on from championship contenders now. But
yeah,
while we're talking about aggressive drivers,
Christian Rasmussen. Just watch that guy. He either wins or wrecks. And when he wins, it's spectacular like he did in Milwaukee last year. He was looked really good at the Phoenix race, was on his way to winning that race when he got cut off by Will Power, unfortunately. Power
put a
spotter didn't let him know Rasmussen was coming. And
put a
that
cut in the tire, and unfortunately, that was the end for Christian.
yeah.
But
But
if you're in particular on an oval, you need to keep your eye on his car.
right.
He is moving up the grid. I've never seen anyone less afraid to put their car on the high line on an oval. I've never seen anyone turn right on an oval more than he does.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
I think the
it's
other thing
shocking.
F1 fans need to look out for are the F1 drivers on the grid.
Yeah, we've got a
We have,
number of former Formula One drivers.
yep, obviously Roman Grosjean back this year. Everyone knows him from Drive to Survive and that fire that he survived in the Haas car. I mean, I remember watching that live thinking I just saw a man die.
Yeah, absolutely
When that fire,
terrifying.
it was terrifying moment. And not only did he survive that, he is driving at 240 miles an hour again in
He's willing to get
IndyCar.
back in the car.
Yeah, and we're excited to have him. He's such an interesting character and a great driver on the grid. Um, the other
But
F1
he's
drivers are
Yeah, he's not the only former Formula One driver. You all may be familiar with the last name Schumacher. Mick Schumacher has moved to IndyCar this year. He's driving for RLL. He has shown some interesting flashes of greatness with a lot of other stuff mixed in, but he
yeah,
is still learning a new series. So we're excited to continue checking out what Mick's got.
yeah,
And the series is so competitive that if he doesn't have much, the last name's not going to save him for very long.
right,
And then the final former Formula One driver is Marcus Ericsson, who drives for Andretti. Marcus has won the Indy 500, has done a lot of great work in IndyCar, but he's always, the last couple of years, he seemed to struggle with the car.
right.
Things aren't how he's wanted them. Since Will moved to Andretti, I think that Marcus has kind of found somebody who he has a little bit of I don't know, they seem to have
Kinship,
kind of a simpatico thing going
right.
on. They like the same thing in the car. They want the data to be delivered the same way. And I think because of partially because of that, and partially because Marcus is a great driver on his own, he's been having a really great season thus far. And I think we could see him go really far. So if you're looking for a former F1 driver to support and you want it to be somebody who's going to be toward the front of the grid, vying for podiums and race wins, Marcus Ericsson's your guy.
Right. And then there are a few other notable names in IndyCar that you should probably know. There's Roger Penske, of course, the captain,
Yeah, you might
head
hear him referred to as the captain.
head of Penske. He is not only does he own the Team Penske, he also owns the IndyCar Series and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So no conflict of interest there. No,
No,
none
none
at all.
whatsoever. Roger is in no way looking for an unfair advantage.
But yeah, so
He's
he
a huge
is,
personality, and
yeah,
his personality is part of what IndyCar is, you know. I
right. Then you've got
Yeah.
Chip Ganassi, a former driver, team owner now, who just has for the last 4 or 5 years really had the formula,
Mhm.
between having the right driver in Alex and,
And
getting that
Scott.
whole team together. Yeah. I mean, they've
Yeah.
done incredible work. And I mean, the last 4 or 5 years, they've been dominant, but they've been competitive ever since Chip moved in from the driver's seat into the owner's seat.
Yeah. They've been competitive for a very long time. And Chip, unlike Roger, Chip is a really approachable guy.
Mhm.
And that's not, I like that Roger's not approachable. That's how he should be. Again, he's a heel.
Yeah.
But Chip has nothing but respect for all of his drivers, for his team. He's the first guy to give credit to everybody else when things go right. I like Chip a lot personally, and he's really fun to watch. And then, of course, if we're talking team owners, we can't leave out Zach Brown, who's a name that you guys will all know, CEO of McLaren. Of course, he's also involved in the Aero McLaren team. He does show up at IndyCar less than he does at Formula One, I think
But
for
he
a couple of
was at
reasons.
Arlington
But
instead
he
of
was at
China.
Arlington. Yeah.
I think it was because he thought maybe they had a chance to win there and they didn't have a chance to win in
I think
China,
there's also
but I
probably
don't
the
know.
money aspect of it. It was IndyCar's first
Right.
time in Arlington, and they're clearly trying to make it a signature. You want Zach Brown to be there to schmooze all those donors.
Yep.
Um, but you'll see him. He's around.
He'll be at Long Beach because, there's no F1 racing going on, so he'll be at the Long Beach race, I'm sure.
I'm curious to know if he'll make the 500 this year. Last year, he chose to go to Monaco instead. And I was, frankly, a little offended on behalf of Pato Award, a
Well,
driver
this
who is
year,
about to do something incredibly challenging, and Lando was going to lead a parade. So I don't know. I really feel like maybe he should have been there to give Pato his support. But
it's going up against the
Toronto,
Toronto IndyCar race, and
Toronto.
it's almost the same time. So yeah, it
Yeah,
feels
he'll be
like
at one or the other. And
feels like he
I would
should be at Indy.
I
You
would
know,
expect him at the 500. And if he's
Yep.
not there, it'll be very clear where his priorities lie. I know he's got a little crush on Lando and he likes hanging out with him. So, but,
Yep.
Pato is a great guy and a great driver. You should give him that support.
Right. So if you're an F1 fan and you're looking for a series to watch while F1 is on hiatus, come check out IndyCar. Great personalities, great competitive action, great tracks. Everything you like about racing is there.
And here's the great news, you guys. If you do follow our advice and check out some IndyCar racing while Formula One is off, or even get a head start and check out the Barber race next weekend, you're going to find yourself in the best Sunday situation in the world. If you're watching from the United States, 90% of race weekends, I wake up and watch a Formula One race. It ends, and 2.5 hours later, I've got another great race to watch. It's not a which one is better. It's a let's watch more racing situation. I have so much fun on Sundays paying attention to both IndyCar and Formula One, and I think you will too.
Yes. And if you live in the United States and you want to go to a race, you can get tickets to an IndyCar race and you'll be at some great venues. So it isn't an either or, it's a yes and is the way I look at it. So for Rides and Drives Team Radio, that's our F1 and IndyCar comparison. We hope you found it entertaining and informative. And we will see you next week when we're back with our podcast, regular scheduled podcast for Race Week for Barber.
Guys, Barber is the coolest track. Please, please, please tune in on Thursday and take a listen to this great history.
Great. So for Rides and Drives Team Radio, I'm Harvey. She's Kaz, and we are out until next week.
Drive safe, everybody.